Sometimes people just give up too soon. So they think they've implemented, they think they've tried it all and it just hasn't worked for them. But trying and doing and implementing and refining and maintaining are very different situations.
All right. Hey, Authentic Influencers. I am so excited to have Stacy Tuchel.
Well, thanks for having me, Brooke. I'm excited to be here. A little bit about me. I've started, entrepreneurship right out of high school. I actually started by teaching dance classes in my parents' backyard. I had 17 kids come that summer that I graduated. And within 3 years, we had 100 dancers coming to my parents' backyard. And thankfully, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. So my parents, my grandparents, my aunt, my uncle, everybody works in this family business where we dig basements for houses. We're excavators here in Wisconsin. And thankfully, because I grew up with people that small business was normal. It was an actual option. They saw these dancers come into the backyard and said, I think this could be a business. I think you could actually do something with this and not just to have it be a passion or a hobby or your side, something for fun. I wouldn't even call it a side hustle because I wasn't trying to make money with it. They basically kind of gave me that confidence to do this and to move forward. In 2005, I incorporated, I got out of the backyard, found a place to rent to call home. The backyard story was already 19 years this summer, which is so crazy. So, 19 years later, I now own and operate 2 performing arts academies in Milwaukee. We have about 1,000 dance and music students that come to us every week, anywhere from 40 to 50 employees on average. And I've been grossing $1 million a year for several years. Basically, the last 5 to 10 years, maybe people just started to say, how are you growing this business? Can I pick your brain? Can you teach me? Like little Starbucks get together started to turn into, okay, maybe I have another business here. Maybe I could actually charge people and consult because that for me was really fun. So about 5 years ago, I decided to start a consulting company and I now help other small business owners get more customers in the door. And it's just been a wild ride, but I love, love, love what I do.
That's awesome. Well, and I'm sure that you have to know a lot about implementing strategy and getting things done and everything, because you can have all of the strategies of marketing and how to get customers and stuff like that. But if you're not implementing, it's not actually going to do you any good.
Right. And I'd go to a conference and people would joke, like I'd have friends that I would, meet there annually and people would joke, she's already getting things done and she's still here, because I would be delegating while in the conference, shooting an email or my project management software going like, ooh, try this. And by the time I get home, these strategies would be implemented. And that's kind of where the book came from was, I have 2 businesses, one that has 2 locations. And then I'm a mom of 2. I'm a wife, we have real estate, and people just started to say, how are you getting this all done? What does that look like? And that is how the Implementation Code book came to be.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into how do you implement? Like, what are maybe your top 3 tips that you can give?
There's a couple ways that we can go. So first of all, if there's something you've been wanting to do, but you just aren't doing it, take that and just be aware of it, right? If you're listening to this podcast and you're like, oh, that's a good idea. And oh, I could do that. But then nothing happens after, right? We have to stop and assess, why is that happening? What is going on that I like to consume? I like to have the ideas, but then I'm not moving forward, right? It might just be you don't have the manpower. You don't have enough time in the day to get it done, but it also could be you just don't want it bad enough, right? I have like a funny story where my husband, who doesn't have to wake up early, he can sleep in until about 7:30 when the kids need to be up. One day I was in my office and I heard his alarm go off at 6 a.m., which is very odd because my husband he's been a second shifter for forever and has always just been a night owl and sleeps in. And I'm like, what is he doing at 6? But then I heard it go off again at 6:09 and then like another 9 minutes, like it just kept going off and off and off. I'm like, what is happening? So I see him, an hour and a half later. I'm like, what was going on with your alarm? Did you mean to set it? And he's like, I did. I thought I was going to start to wake up early and, it's going to be one of my new habits. I'm like, well, what happened? He's like, I guess I just don't want it bad enough. Like he's heard me say this enough. I'm like, you're right. You had nothing to do. You didn't know what you were going to do at that time. And you had no reason or no why behind it to make it happen. So the idea of waking up early and being productive sounded exciting, but when then push came to shove, the motivation just wasn't there, right? So a lot of times I have to stop and assess it with everybody listening. Like, do you really want this? Right? If you really want something, but yet you still will binge 3 hours of TV every single night instead of working on what you need to do, or you find yourself scrolling on social media when you should be working, right? You have to really stop and say, you don't really want it that bad. And that's okay. But let's figure out what you do want and why you want that specific thing. And let's go after that, right? So there's a lot of stuff in there that I think somebody might resonate with or wonder why they think they want a 6-figure business or a 7-figure business, right? And it might be it's somebody else's dream. It's not really yours. So you've got to start to assess, like, what does that look like for you?
They're like, working out is a perfect example for me because
Yeah.
I want to work out, but then when the alarm goes off, I'm like, do I really want to get up out of bed?
100%. You would rather stay in bed than work out. That was your priority, right? And it's just your why. And that is what we have to like really find the root of. And we have to maybe figure out what's a better why. You know, if getting up early to work out is just not doing it for you, what can we figure out? Like what's the reason behind it? So I think that's a big one to start to assess. And then another reason or another thing that I want you to consider is sometimes people just give up too soon. So they think they've implemented, they think they've tried it all and it just hasn't worked for them. But trying and doing and implementing and refining and maintaining are very different situations. So I always explain to people there are 4 phases of really getting it done and implementing. It is first learning, educating yourself, like really just being obsessed with that process of what will this entail? What does this look like? Then it goes to doing. But the part that's hard for people is the doing is messy and it's lots of failures. So when you do and you fail, people just stop. But you're in it, right? You're in the thick of it. You're in the phase of still experimenting and trying and working the kinks out. After you're doing, that next stage is the refining. And that's why so many people quit so fast. They just think it's learn, do, you're either successful and you keep doing it or you fail and you're done. But really failing is going to happen. And it's a massive, massive part of it. The question is, how do we refine? How do we get better, right? How do we keep doing this and try something a little bit different, right? See what happens when we try different things. So refining is a massive, massive skill set that you've got to get good at if you want to really start to implement, but it's not easy because it can take days, weeks, months, years, depending on what the skill set is that you're trying to do. And then that last piece is maintaining, right? So when you finally get something working, you finally do something on social media and you're getting traction, right? Maybe you just started going live and you're like, wow, it's working well. And then a few weeks later, you're thinking, my engagement went down. What's happening? And you remember, oh, shoot, I've all of a sudden stopped doing that strategy that's been working so well, right? That happens a lot. Or like, I'll say to a team member, when did we stop doing this, right? Like I thought we were doing it. And they're like, oh, shoot, it's not in the system. We didn't have a system set up for it. So the maintenance is, how do we check in? How do we make sure it keeps happening? And what is the lowest level of input we have to do to keep the maintenance? So you might clean out, I don't know, like the mudroom closet, the front hall closet, like something that just gets a little messy. You clean it once and then you expect it to look good forever, right? Which doesn't happen. You know, you need that maintenance of, do I need to check it every Friday and just kind of clean it up a little bit? Do I need to check it maybe just once a month, once every quarter, once every 6 months? So really putting in a maintenance plan in place after you've refined is going to be so much more helpful than, again, just learning and then trying. And then the second you fail, say, Brooke, I know you told me to do that strategy, but it just didn't work for me. And I think we have too high of expectations, especially if we have children or, you know, we're trying to work out, but it's not a rhythm or routine yet. We're just expecting this to just click for us. And it's going to take some work.
Right. And I think it's especially hard in like the network marketing space because like the only success stories you're told are the ones that are, hey, this person joined and in 3 months they're at the top of the company. And so everyone should do that when that actually is not the norm.
Yes. Yes, 100%. And I don't do this on purpose, but I always apologize that I make this look way too easy because you don't see, I'm not somebody that's going to throw up pity parties and I'm definitely not going to do it publicly. So you don't see when I'm struggling or I'm having a bad day or I've done something, right? But then of course we share the celebrations because it's just more of how we naturally do it. But trust me, everybody that has major success has major failures, has major struggles. Somebody that has major success doing financially well can still be financially struggling or worried about finances or worried about having 15 people on payroll or whatever that is. We all go through the struggles. This is just a part of it, but it's so worth it. One reward can be so worth everything that's you've been struggling with for months or years or whatever it is.
Well, and it makes that reward that you get so much sweeter. Because you have gone through so much, And so like I always tell people, when you're going through like these lows, when it feels like everything, no matter what you try, everything is failing, I just keep telling them, like, if you're way down here, that means that your reward is going to be clear up here,
Yeah. Well, and too, if you're saying they're trying everything, right? Because a lot of times we do, and then we're like, no, seriously, Brooke, it is not working. I have done it all. The question is, have you done it to the extent of what is being taught, right? So when people look at you, look at somebody else that maybe they're scrolling on social, right? And they think they're modeling the behavior. They think they're copying or cloning what's happening. You might have done half the amount of work. You might have done it in a fourth the amount of time if we have prepped, with maybe an eighth of the amount of team like that we have, right? So there's things that you have to understand too. You don't get to see all of what is happening. And you definitely don't get to see when it didn't work that day, or we tried this and that didn't happen either, right? So I think just really understanding that, have you refined it enough? Have you really tried and given it your all before you quit and go to the next thing, right?
Right. Yes. I love that, because so many times people, especially in network marketing, because I think that it's like everything should just happen so quick.
Yeah.
And I did it just like that person told me to, but they don't see it's like the iceberg, you see the tip of the iceberg, but you don't see everything else that's underneath it. When we talk about implementing, I love the strategy that you have put out. Do you have tips on like when you're implementing things, how to maybe hire or outsource some of those things? Because I know, at least for me, that has helped me a ton with getting more things done, is like having someone else to link arms with me and help me along the journey.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that I would say is first start by getting everything super organized of what needs to be done and what needs to be done maybe in the future. So for instance, right now, I'm going to be hiring a marketing manager. This role does not exist. They are coming in as a new person. So they're not replacing somebody. There are no systems in place, right? So when you say, what's the job description? I don't know. We don't have any of that, right? But as I'm sitting here going, oh, I wish we could do this with marketing. I wish we could do that. And I wish somebody would be able to take the text message software and go even, more into it and engaged, et cetera. I just start brain dumping on the future marketing manager's to-do list, right? And just even putting that off of my plate, of my ideas and my strategy onto somebody else's who doesn't even exist yet makes me feel so much better, right? It gives me permission to say, we're going to get to that, just not right now. And Stacey, you don't have time to do that. So you're not going to do that. You're going to wait until a magical person comes in and she or he can help us do that, right? So really just brain dumping what has to get done, what needs to get done now by you, what can be delegated, honestly, what can be deleted, what can be deleted, what can be put on holds, right? So there's so many things that you want to do, and I'll work with a client and she'll show me her top 10 things. And it's like, write a book, like start a podcast, like massive. Like I'm thinking those 10 things will probably be a few years in the making, right? So what I want you to start to really do is just pick 3 big things for the year, right? And prioritize them in case you only get through number 1, right? And then anything that's 4 and beyond, put it in your parking lot, put it in the to-do later. So right now, if I were to have just the rest of the day off and I could just go and start working, I would go into my project management software. I'd go into my to-do nows, right? And I would just start working through there. And if an idea would come up or something we could do, I would go put it on a future parking lot for myself, or I would put it on a to-do list for somebody on the team already. And I do with my direct reports, people that I work with one-on-one, I have a weekly meeting with them. So every time I get an idea for our launch manager or our social media manager, right? Other people like that, instead of bothering them in the middle of the day with this new idea that I just thought of right this second, I just make a note to put it in our weekly meeting. So when I'm talking with them one-on-one, I can say, okay, here's what I'm thinking, right? A lot of this stuff isn't urgent in the moment right this second. It can wait 6 days until your next meeting. But I think we are so used to or have this massive sense of urgency of we need it done now, right? It has to happen right this second. If you would just slow down and organize your thoughts before you started delegating, it would be so much better. Because I used to be before I had managers and leaders, it was me with 20 people and I'd come home from a conference and I would just be throwing things at everybody and there would just be chaos, right? You have to really get your thoughts together and ask yourself, what are the priorities here? And that should really help you.
Well, Stacy, how can people find more about you and get information about your book and all?
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. So my podcast is called Foot Traffic. I primarily really stick with marketing ideas, getting customers in the door, but yes, systems, automation, implementation, all of that is definitely included. So the Foot Traffic podcast, anywhere on social media, I'm at Stacy Tuschl. And then my book right now, you can still grab for free with just paying the shipping and handling. If you go to implementationcode.co/free book, that link will get you the book for like $8.95. And the book comes with a mini course inside for free as well. So tons of good stuff to get you moving.
It's been a pleasure talking to you and such great information to help people.
Perfect. Thanks, Brooke. I appreciate your time.